Sermons this year in our church are based on another sermon, the Sermon on the Mount, as found in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. As we read through the Sermon on the Mount, sometimes it's easy to see that Jesus is jumping from topic to topic, and sometimes it can almost feel a little choppy. But actually, they're all very deeply connected, each section of the Sermon on the Mount. It starts off with a section that we're talking about in our adult Sunday school. Blessed. Blessed are you, because when things go wrong, the blessings of God are there. In fact, blessed are those who are persecuted. And then he goes on to talk about salt and light. Despite the fact that you are persecuted, despite the fact that things go wrong, be salt and be light in your world. You know, life on this earth is only so long. It doesn't last for a lengthy period of time. But eternity is a long, long time. We're not to focus on this world that only lasts a blink of an eye. We're to focus on a heavenly eternity that will never end. Eternity is breaking into our world now, and we focus on that. We've been having discussions on Sermon on the Mount as well. I've been inviting people to engage with this topic. We talk about in Sunday school. Tomorrow night, you're welcome to come and engage on this topic, to go deeper, to discuss it at 7:30. If you can't make it out, you can get together with coffee with some friends. I've got some sheets out on the table in the foyer that just are questions about today's sermon. Take it. Talk about it. I don't care if you actually go through the whole question sheet, but take the opportunity. Share with me. Hold me up later and say, hey, do you know what? We thought about this. Monday night we got together and discussed the sermon from last week. And what was amazing, I got emails. I got people coming in to talk to me and saying, hey, I also thought of this later on. It's exactly what we want to have happen. And you know what? I've learned a lot about what we talked about last Sunday through this last week. And that's been really good. At the end of the service, just like we did last week, and letting people know this, I'm going to even let you ask me questions or add your 2 cents to the sermon this morning. And you know what? That's appropriate because the Sermon on the Mount set off a lot of debate. And it still is a discussion point today. It's meant to be discussed. It's meant to be debated. Jesus came to shake things up in the religious community. He throws in a lot of controversy. And today we come to this very important question. If he's coming to shake things up, does that mean he's kind of overthrowing the whole system? Is he getting rid of the whole religious system? Did he come to overthrow God's legal order? The law was everything to the Jews. And they saw very rightly the law of Moses as the greatest gift they were given. It was not the first legal code to exist on our planet, but it was among the earliest, and it was among the longest lasting legal codes to exist. Live according to these rules, and you will be the people of God. Follow this prescribed set of rules, and you will be the people of God. And then they found that if they ignored the law, bad things occurred. But when they tried their best to follow the laws of God, good things happened. Good things happened. Jesus comes along. He kind of shakes things up a lot. A whole lot. but he does not come to overthrow the law. In fact, we're going to discover over the next several weeks that if anything, Jesus takes the law more seriously than the Pharisees and lawyers and everybody else. Jesus does not come to abolish the law, he comes to fulfill it. There was a very angry courtroom session once. One of the attorneys yelled at his opponent, "You are a cheat!" To which he was answered, "And you're a liar!" The judge interjected and banged his gavel and said, "Well, now let's get on with the case now that we know your names." Sometimes it can feel that way. Jesus and the rules. You know, there's only one who has the right to come along and abolish the law. Only one. There is only one who has the right to amend the law in any way. Why? Because our morality is based on creation. The law that God set up is based on the very way that he created the heavens and the earth. It is not just based on some willy-nilly thing. There is a precise reason for our morality, and for the most part, our law is based on that. Jesus has no rational reason to come along and say that the law is not important. And yet, you know what? The Jewish people said Jesus came and he got rid of the law. And today you'll hear that. It's not at all what he was after. Truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot, will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Until all is accomplished. An iota. That's a Greek letter. It's basically the letter I. Very possibly when Jesus spoke that, he may have actually used a different letter because he would have been speaking Hebrew. You might see that as a different letter in some versions. The point is, it's a little tiny letter. And sometimes the Greeks got rid of it because it didn't really play any role in the word. It didn't change the pronunciation. Sometimes it was in it. It didn't really matter. And so sometimes the Greeks would drop this letter. And sometimes you'd see a word spelled with this letter iota, and sometimes you wouldn't. In fact, not even the dot of an iota will disappear. In our world, in our English language, we have the letter I. Hence the title of today's sermon. Little lowercase I. Do you know what? If you get rid of the dot on top of an I, it doesn't change the letter. It's still an I. It still means the same thing. And Jesus says, even that little dot there, I don't take that away. That's important enough that it will stay there. It's the same letter. Jesus comes not to change anything. In fact, he doesn't loosen the law at all. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Earlier, I read from a different translation, and it said, along the lines, therefore whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments. Put a different translation. The translation up on the screen is from what's called the English Standard Version. And I think it's a little bit more of a literal translation. This word relaxes is key. A little bit better translation than breaks. If you drive down Highway 14, I know this is hard to imagine, but if you drive down Highway 14 and you drive 100 kilometers an hour, it is possible somebody might pass you. Hard to imagine. If you drive the speed limit, people are probably going to fly by you, right? That's what happens. Yet, if you drive 101 kilometers an hour, technically, you're speeding. Why are people willing to go a lot faster than 101 kilometers an hour even? You know what, I've occasionally maybe gone a little faster than 100 kilometers an hour. It has happened. And I have even passed 5 police officers coming the other way. And if you're doing 110, are they likely to turn around and chase you down? Probably not. You can do 115. How fast do you think you can go until they turn and spin around and decide that's too fast? I'm not sure what the answer is. Do you know what? If you're 101, if you're going 101, you are guilty of breaking law. But there's a little bit of relaxing to the law, a little bit of loosening, a little bit of leeway given. That okay, you do 110, it's not that big a deal. And so the law is loosened. And Jesus comes along and said, there's no loosening of the law. You go 101, you're guilty. Kind of that same idea. But Jesus goes a little bit further than this. Actually goes a whole lot further than this. Because as we read the rest of the Sermon on the Mount, we discover that if you, in your heart, are doing you're kind of looking at your speedometer and you're doing 100. But in your heart you're saying, I wish I could do 110 too. You're guilty. Because it has to do with what your heart wants to do. In fact, you see somebody else go flying by you and you start to get really mad and you wish there was a police officer right there at that moment. Well, that might be a little bit of envy in your heart, and therefore you're just as guilty as the person who whipped by you. Does that sound like he's letting up on the law? This is pretty harsh stuff. And you know what? If you're that person, you are, oh, there's the word relaxes, you are the least. And we find the word least in there several times. If you do the least of these commandments, one that you don't think matters a whole lot, you are the least in the kingdom of heaven. You're not thrown out. Do you know what? This isn't about speeding so much. He's going to go on, he's going to apply this to things like murder and anger and marriage and money and all sorts of practical things. Forgiveness. I mean, he gets to all sorts of really practical things, and this is how it applies. If you try to relax the rules for yourself,